Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and originally we had Chris Ramsey scheduled for tonight, but we're going to move that one on because we literally need to get into what's happening today in the UFO world. Lue Elizondo's Imminent release today. Big news coming out of that book. Sweet Robbie G has read the book, same as ufologist and podcaster Josh Rutledge. They are here to form a panel with me to talk about this latest book here. Dirty Filth is here as well with another great cartoon. Maybe it'll involve Elizondo. I don't know. But we have all of you as well, including Race Fan in the gold medal position. We got Tim Mothman and his goatee in the silver. The lovely and talented Kira with a bronze medal tonight. And Flat Six, SJ, Eternity Eternal, Paramarv. How you doing? Paramarv will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Lee the Bee, Dragonfly. Nice to see you. Mama Catherine. Mwah. I love you, Mama Catherine. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. Moving on, we got Mel WD-40 filling in for Bill WD-40. He's lubing us up for tonight's show to make sure we get into the show nice and smooth. You don't want any rigidness. You know what I'm talking about. Necessary Dialogue, nice to see you. Paul Demon, thanks for coming on out. As we continue on with our roll call tonight, we say hello next to Rugged Source. Thank you for joining us. Cosmic Joe, good to see you. And who's next? Thomas Rock. Cosmic Joe, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of SOR. Michael Morris, good to see you. T-Bone, my man, how's it going? Hope you're having a great night. Kevin Kennedy, nice to have you here. Pix is back. Pix will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Moving on down, Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. S. Vermette, good to have you here. Operation Shutdown, Little Cam on Twitch. He bench pressed 665 pounds, 27 times, 15 seconds. Guy was pumping. John Lamb, Mac Geek, Mennonite Abe, good to see you all. Thank you for coming on in. Hi, S. Vermette. And Algaray over on Twitch. This guy did 2,332 jumping jacks in 3.5 minutes just to warm up for tonight's show. Amazing. Noble Patrick, Rose Brooks, good to see you. Millennium, my man. Channel Warhorse, Philip Baccanuts, how you guys doing? Hey, Deadfish, how you doing? Thanks for coming on in. Escape from Blue Jersey, good to see you. Scrub-a-dub-dub, JSCO, nice to have you both here. Michael Fontaine, JMJ12, Warden Dragon, nice to have you all here. Killing Reality, thank you for joining us. Forrest Louie, Cindy, thank you for coming on in. J Truth Seeker, nice to have you here. Hi, River Dog, good to have you here. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are talking about Lue Elizondo's book tonight, Imminent. Yep, the hunt for UFOs is on. Josh Rutledge, Sweet Robbie G are here with us tonight to break down the book that everybody in the UFO world is talking about. So we're going to do that here momentarily. Let's continue on with roll call. Contrary one, thank you for joining us. Hi, Polly Rotterman. Good to have you here. Want to remind everybody that the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. As well, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure when you buy your clothing, you choose wisely, unless you buy one of each because it's all nice. That's okay too, including Sweet Robbie G's underwear. You need some Sweet Robbie G underwear right there. Absolutely, you do. It is that time of the night where I tell you to get ready, get set, because we're about to go on Spaced Out Radio. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out the Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of awesomeness tonight. We're going to talk about Imminent. Lue Elizondo's new book, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, just released today. And we're going to get into this big time tonight with Sweet Robbie G from the After Hours show and our good friend Josh Rutledge, researcher, MUFON member, paranormal enthusiast, a guy who shaves twice a day. Twice a day. We're going to get into it momentarily with them. Then in hour 3, Swamp Dweller is here with another creepy story. That will be followed up by Jackie Harmon and the Cryptid Report. All right. We're going to get into it right now. We have been waiting for years for this book. We heard about it about 3 years ago, wondering when it would come out, and now that when is today. Lue Elizondo, the former head of the ATIP program at the Pentagon, apparently during his time there was responsible for the investigation of UFOs, now known as unidentified aerial phenomena. Well, he is revealing the long-hidden truths with profound implications for not only national security, but our understanding of the universe. The book is called Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. It is called Imminent. And we're going to get into this today. Everybody's breaking it down. We have to as well. Josh Rutledge, Sweet Robbie G, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight to break this down. Now, I do have to profess that I have not read the book yet. And mine was supposed to arrive tomorrow, but the elves at Amazon have delayed me. The book is so popular that they've already sold out. And my copy is being delayed. So I am going to have to power wing it, not only through you guys, but I'm going to have to also buy the audio book version of this as well in order to do it. Josh, I know we've used you quite a bit over the last week and a half, 2 weeks here. You're probably getting tired of us, but thank you for coming on in. And Rob G, you are amazing. You are my backbone of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for coming in as well. Sweets, you're on mute.
Awesome stuff. I said, great. Nice to meet you, Josh, for the first time here, man.
Same.
All
So
right.
yeah, your fans are probably getting tired of hearing me talk, but I'm glad to get into it.
Part of the family, man. That's what happens, man. You're in the family.
Once you're here, we actually tattoo you. We do.
Oh,
We put a big owl logo on your back. That way, yeah.
You tattoo me. I was thinking you tattoo my visage on you.
Ah.
No. No, that's when we come over to your show, your podcast.
Oh, okay.
And you can tattoo us.
Yeah, we can tattoo. Gotcha. Cool.
All right, Josh, we've been waiting a long time for Lue Elizondo's book to come out. It's finally here. Before we get too deep into the book, what are your thoughts overall?
Overall, I think it's a fantastic book. I really like just from an overall book structure. I mean, the book's title is very much, I think, geared towards the UAP investigation of phenomenon, but throughout the book, he sprinkles in biographical information about his upbringing, kind of how he got to be where he was and became the person that he is. Information about his family and his wife, and some information that some details about what they went through as a part of all this. So although it's geared towards the UAP, topic, I think it's, as a book in its entirety, I think it does a really good job of really laying out who Lue is as a person, because for many of us, all we know him as is the former director of ATIP. And so this book gives us some insights potentially into who else he is.
Well, the one thing that I want to read, and I can't wait to read it, is to see how personal he gets. Because I know his family is very important to him. I know his family has had to deal with death threats over the last number of years. And that's just since coming into the UFO world. Never mind his time at Guantanamo Bay or anything like that. But we're going to get deep into that a little bit later on. Just overall, are you glad the book is finally out, ending the mysticism and mystery?
I am. Really feel like it's definitely a big time foray into what is the next chapter of this kind of hero's journey, if you will, that Lue has been on over the last several years.
Sweet Robbie G, we bring you in now from after hours on the Spaced Out Radio weekend, and pretty soon we'll be coming to our radio stations on terrestrial radio. Thank you, Rob, for joining us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem at all. Anytime.
You went and got the audio version of this book as well, and you burned through it. If I know you, you probably stayed up all night listening to this thing and would not go to bed. I'm sure there was a bag of Cheetos and probably a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper to go along with it. Am I wrong or right on that?
Sort of right, sort of wrong. The Dr. Pepper and stuff didn't have that, though. I did. I got notification as soon as the book was available, which was right after the show last night, and I immediately went in. Couldn't wait to do it, and it was everything that I thought that it would be. When I say that, because obviously we don't want to give too much away tonight, but when I said that, we've heard the story over hundreds of podcasts that he's done, but there were things that he held back. There were definitely things that he held back. I will say this to anyone out there: if you are on the fence about buying the book, but you're like, no, I'm not going to buy it because I heard the story, I've heard everything said, I'll tell you this: he goes way more in detail on the things that happen. Like, it's almost like you were there with him throughout these hurdles that he actually had to go through. So for that fact alone, I would say definitely go out and get it. But then there's also some other tidbits in there that I was surprised by. Overall, love the book. I'm about to go through it again probably tomorrow, and great book.
Yeah, I'm still, like I said, waiting for my copy. Thank you, Amazon, for ruining my highlight. I appreciate that. But I will, after this show, go buy the audiobook version of this because I got to get informed. I got to know what's going on. It's very rare that I get very, very excited about a book. And Rob, you've been around long enough. I don't do shows on books.
Yeah.
I absolutely refuse to do shows on books because this is not an infomercial. And here we are talking about a book called Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs by Lue Elizondo. Now, I didn't think at any point that this book was actually ever going to come out. I thought the government would stall it through NDAs and all sorts of reviews through Dopser and everything along those lines. Rob, are you surprised that finally we are at this point that it's actually out in print and you can touch it, smell it, hear it, feel it?
I had actually forgot about it for a while. It's been so long since he said it was coming out, and we kind of waited. And we got into the new year. You get occupied with other things, so it kind of got off my radar. But the moment that I heard that it was coming out, I'm like, okay, let's get ready. I will say this, excuse me for. I just wanted to add this to what I was saying earlier. If you, I would recommend for those out there to get the physical book, like I'm actually going to get as well, but you have to do the audio book. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's narrated by Lue Elizondo. Chris Mellon does the forward, and it's essentially like Lou sitting there telling you this stuff. So everything that's being said in the book, it's coming directly from Lou, and you can feel that. And I think it probably is a better experience than reading it yourself. And that's just my opinion.
Unless you read it in Lou's voice in your head while you read the book. I mean, that's the only potential. But then you have to watch a lot of interviews to make sure that you have his voice down mentally. But yes, I mean, I agree. So I read the audiobook today, or played the audio, however you say it. But I put it at 1.5 speed. It took me about 6.5 hours to get through it. But yeah, I mean, even at 1.5 speed, Audible does a good job of not making it sound like, an actual elf at Amazon was reading the book to me. So it still sounded like Lou, still got his cadence and everything. And you're right. The emotion just really comes through even, as he's reading this book. You can tell that he didn't just go into a sound booth and just read words on a page, right? He was invested in what he was reading and what he was conveying. Now, I will say also that I got the Kindle book in addition to the audiobook, and there's some information in the Kindle version that wasn't in the audiobook. So I don't know if there's maybe in the print, because I would assume Kindle and print are probably pretty close to the same, but I wonder if in the print book there might even be stuff that's in there that's not in the audiobook.
Were there words or documents?
Well, in the audiobook, it comes along with a PDF that has like some appendix stuff in it. And so that I got, but in the Kindle version of the book, there's a whole pages that are redacted that the audiobook just kind of glosses over. It doesn't say that there's additional text. Like in some places it'll say name redacted by DOD, but very early on in the book, there's like an entire page that's redacted in the Kindle version. In the audiobook, it made no mention of it being redacted. So it kind of adds a little bit of a flavor of mystery that, had he just called out and said, this next section, this next 35 words or whatever are redacted in the audiobook, I think would have added to the mystery in the audiobook as well.
Okay. I'm going to have to pay attention to that.
Gentlemen, I'm looking at all of this, and I've been reading online, especially on X, where you have people absolutely waving the Lue Elizondo flag. You have people who are absolutely trying to trash every word of it. I know both of you are very unbiased on the way you try to report things and the way you guys try to allow yourself to come in. But I need an opinion here. Is this book worth it, Rob?
It is totally worth it. It is definitely worth it. I mean, if you had, that's what I mean. I mean, I think the only setback for most people, especially because you hear a lot of people here in the ufology say, "Oh, well, I've heard it already." Yeah, you just don't get it. You won't, like, this is different. Like and I've said this before. Lue speaks in riddles. You can tell after listening to the book or reading the book, whichever one you do, that when you look back at those interviews, you could see where he was holding back. Now you could see the things that he wasn't saying, and lose that kind of guy. So I think that was calculated, and I knew he was holding part of this back for the book, and you're gonna get that. So I would say it's definitely worth getting. There's no doubt about it. No question. If you are into this subject and you are looking towards disclosure and what happens after that, this has to go in your collection. And I'm not being paid by Lue unless he wants to hit me up at Mr. Rob G. Either way, but I'm doing it because I really feel like he's doing this for humanity, and I'm not, like you said, I'm not biased on either way, but I'm a pro humanity person, and I do what I do for humanity, and I can feel when other people are doing that as well, and that's kind of what I got from this book.
How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I would have to agree. For me, the only thing that caused me to question Lue's story in any way, shape, or form is when there was the kind of the press release from the Pentagon saying that, Lue was never associated with the ATIP program. But, to me, even when they made that post, it kind of seemed a little off, that they would basically go out and say, no, we've never heard of this guy. You don't know who he is. And so, Lue handles that in the book, in the print version. In the Kindle version, it's actually included in an appendix in the back. And then in the audio version, you get an additional PDF, and it has the emails back and forth between like Harry Reid endorsing him, his resignation letter that he sent when he resigned, the emails back and forth when he was going to turn it over to the other person who's mentioned in the book that was going to take over the program. All of this stuff is included as like his way of saying, and he even talks about it in detail in a couple of chapters of the book about all the hassle that he went through with people trying to smear his name. And so for me, that context that he provides cleared up the only concern that I had with him in his story. And so because of that, I can now go back and say, his bona fides add up. And so I can believe what he has to say. And so because of that, to this point, nobody has been able to provide any factual information that contradicts what he is coming out with. I have to believe, at least to this level, what he's saying. And so from that reason, yes, it's the absolute must read. There is content in the book. There are names in the book. There's locations in the book that he's not talked about in interviews before. And part of it might have been because he was holding it for the book, but part of it might have also been he was waiting for clearance, from the government to even be able to talk about it. And so, Dave, we talked about it last night. You read towards the end of the show that I think it was the Black Vault. I can't remember who, but somebody had a letter saying that, it was approved for publication, that the book was approved for publication by the DOD. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, with that hurdle out of the way, it's out there. There's some fantastic information. I mean, just some additional information about the Nimitz incident that we all probably think we know. Just some additional stuff that he includes in the first couple of chapters about the Nimitz incident just really opens up the complexities of the Nimitz incident. So it's just, again, full of great information. Buy the print or Kindle version so that you can screenshot names and places and dates and file your FOIA requests.
Do you feel like you got to know the man, Lue Elizondo, a little bit better, Rob?
I really do. Because like I say, when you see him in interviews, he speaks in riddles. So, you have to do work into kind of figuring out the other part of it by reading between the lines. But I think what you get here is you get the Lue that you would be sitting down having a beer with, like the Lue. If you were in his circle, his immediate circle, like really knew Lue, this is what you're getting in the book. And I know it just sounds like we're selling the book, but it is really that good. It was really, I went into it expecting more than we had with the interviews, but I didn't expect to really connect with it as much as I did in the end. And it was, you really got an insight on Lue the person, right? And that's kind of what I like to do with people anyway, get to know them as people. And I kind of felt like I got that out of this book. So I'm behind him on this, man. I'm applaud him everywhere he goes, and he's pushing the right message, and I think he's doing it for the right reasons and being pretty transparent as much as he can, I would say.
You know, I'm going to hold off on my comment on that, because as an experiencer and a journalist, which is a rare combination, I don't see the threat narrative. I don't see he has stated already on interviews that, this is demon like, and that we have to be careful going on. I want to read and see and feel the words that he uses, because the one thing that bothers me is we always seem to go to demons, and we always seem to go to nefarious aliens like on Independence Day that are here to absolutely annihilate humanity. Yet we've been on this planet for thousands of years, if you're not a creationist, thousands of years, and it hasn't happened yet. And there is record of all of this going back. So I get a little bit defensive when I hear somebody talking about aliens being demons and here to annihilate us. I'm not going to go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, throughout the book, he actually kind of ridicules, mocks, I don't know what the right word is, the people who call these things demons. So I don't think that's his position at all. If it's come up in interviews, it's probably, maybe he's said it out of context or whatever, but very much in the book, he is not, the book does not convey or whatever that he's aligned to the demonology perspective. In fact, of the people who bring it up and say, when they find out what he's doing and they say that, you're doing the devil's work or whatever, he says, that's, I don't know why we have to bring in the religion side of trying to solve for this equation. So he gives a lot of personal information about how he was raised. For example, his mother raised him Jewish, but he went to a Catholic church. So I mean, he's got some spiritual, religious stuff in him, but the way it conveys in the book is that he really approached it from a data-driven perspective, not so much an emotional, spiritual-driven perspective.
Right. I want to hold reservation on that, because I've heard the threat narrative is what bugs me. And Rob, you and I have agreed to disagree on that numerous times.
We still do.
And we will in the future. I guarantee tomorrow we will still disagree on that. But I want to hold off my reservation on that until I get a chance to get at it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little jealous of you guys right now.
Yeah, you should be.
I am a little jealous of that. So, gentlemen, when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, I want to get into why you think this book is so controversial. Okay, I think it's important to break that down. Even reading a lot of the comments in our YouTube chat tonight, okay, you got a lot of supporters, you have some detractors, and you have people who are out there saying nothing is provable. There's no evidence, there's no proof. And we got to get into that when we return. Josh Rutledge, Sweet Robbie G, they are here discussing the big UFO news of the day, the release of Lue Elizondo's book, Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear, guys.
Nice.
Gents, I have to just step away for a minute. You guys chat away. I'll be right back.
Sure, Dave.
He drank too much water. That's what it is.
Yeah, overactive bladder. Yeah, that's exactly what he has. Filthy Filth. How you doing, sir? There he is.
Rob G. I was going to say Dave's actually letting the dogman out for a walk and a pee. Don't let him tell you otherwise.
That's good. I like it. Long time, Phil. Glad to see you, man. Glad to hear from you. Glad to hear your voice.
Well, I'm still just as handsome as ever, mister.
Yeah, no, I know. No, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. Go ahead.
How's it going, Rob? It's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, man. I'm just hanging in here.
My internet's being stupid, so I'm probably cutting out, but whatever.
No, you're good.
It might not for you guys, but it's been weird the last couple days.
What, your audio?
So I decided I was gonna. No, just my internet's been really weird. Like even my phone and stuff cuts out. And I unplugged my router junk and plugged it back in and remodulated the phase variance on the EPS manifold, and it still didn't seem to want to fix the thing. But we've always had really crappy internet at this place. So
you ever
run
run
the plus side will be sorry.
You ever run a speed test?
Yeah, it seems to be okay.
Yeah,
but just the last little while, like it's been fine for a bit, but the last while it's just been really drunk. I don't understand it. It'll be going good for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it starts chopping out. But if you guys can hear me, I'm just gonna a little bit. So.
I used to do tech support for an ISP, so you ever want.
Hey, there you go. Step 1, unplug your router.
Yeah.
Have you tried turning it off and on?
Exactly. Let me take this call, guys.
Oh, who's calling him, I wonder? Secret agent guy. Stop talking about us on the radio.
Yeah, really.
Well, it's funny.
Go ahead.
In the not this year, but last year in Vegas at the Spaced Out Radio Party, I had a bunch of little art cards that I brought with me to just hand out to random people, and I got to meet John Ramirez, and I gave him one. It was the Mosul Orb little art card that I did. Talked to him for a couple minutes, and then sauntered off and went and harassed Science Bob or something like that. But it was funny. I was telling everyone at work about it, and like, oh, geez, Dirty Filth, maybe you get a file now. I'm like, well, they should buy my book. Yeah, I chuckled. That'd be kind of cool though if one day just some random CIA guy just like pops into the chat room or under the show out of nowhere, just inserts himself. And he's dressed as a man in black too. That'd be so cool. Anyways,
I mean, but if he did, would you believe that it's him?
I don't know. I get a pretty decent BS detector, but I don't know. I don't know what a CIA guy would just. They got better things to do. They're probably, toppling governments in other parts of the world, not hanging out on the internet watching shows about aliens,
or toppling alien civilizations in another part of the world or something. I don't know.
Oh, maybe on other planets. I wish the 20 and back thing was a solid real. Well, it could be real. I don't know. I don't have any proof otherwise, but they just came out one day like, yeah, sorry everybody, we actually got super soldiers. Everybody was,
yeah,
like crap.
Do you think there's yearbooks for the 20 and back people?
Sorry about that.
No, that'd be pretty cool though. Where do you find those?
I don't know. Like, they're like most likely to succeed on Mars,
Best hand-to-hand combat versus a reptilian.
Right. Yeah. They were the inspiration for that scene where Kirk fought the reptilian. It was the inspiration. Super soldiers.
Oh, that'd be so cool. I'll have to write that down for a cartoon. That's for sure. I've always meant to do that. Draw. Sorry, Dave.
That's all right.
Just scribbling some notes here, quick.
You're a scribble some notes kind of guy.
All the cats are inside, by the way, Dave.
Good. We got 20 seconds. Thank you to T-Bone, Mennonite Abe, JSCO, and Cosmic Joe for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Here we go with the second half hour. All right, let's kick off the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio. We're glad to have you here with us tonight talking about Lue Elizondo's new book, Imminent, that was released today. All right, want to remind everybody that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. All right, let's get right to it. We have our good friends, Sweet Robbie G and Josh Rutledge, breaking down the book that we've been waiting years for, Lue Elizondo's Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Gentlemen, one of the things that caught me off guard right off the bat was for years we never heard Elizondo use the word or the term UFO. Everything was UAP. UAP this, UAP that, trying to jump on the trend of 2015 onward that this was no longer unidentified flying objects, but unidentified anomalous phenomena. And yet the title of his book turns back to UFOs. Does that catch either of you off guard? Rob, we'll start with you.
No, it really doesn't. And actually, he kind of goes over some of that in the book on the, the very calculated steps that they had to take in order to make sure that UAP was defined correctly. And I won't go too far into all the details on that, but I think tomato as far as that goes. I think he probably always has said UFO, but on the stage, in these interviews, I think UAP is what relates to people who may not already be aware of the subject or topic. I think that's what the word was designed. Well, I think the government designed it to obfuscate, really, but I think Lue uses it when he was, or still does, use it in a way to kind of, to relate to the newer people that may be calling this thing UAP.
How about you, Josh?
Yeah, also not concerned with it. Interestingly enough, UAP is not a 2015 term. It actually goes back to the 40s. Yeah. There were some military cases even filed in the 40s where they used the term UAP. So it's not necessarily a new term. Let's say it's not been a popular term. UFO has been much more popular in the public. But I agree. I mean, I think that, internally when he was, talks about it in the book, like trying to seek budget and stuff like that, if you use the term UFO, he immediately got shut down. People wouldn't even talk to him. But if you use the term UAP, they didn't know what it meant yet. They didn't know the association. And so he could get the meetings that he needed. But the book is obviously directed at the public. There may be, military or government officials that will read the book, but it's really probably directed at the UFO community. And so it makes sense to use, at least on the cover, terminology that is going to result in recognition and book sales.
Well, and I think people still define UFOs as UFOs. And I know a lot of people will say, geez, really, you're talking about this? But I think it is an important part to talk about. All right, because what is a UAP? What is a UFO? I have been told by insiders that UAP, yes, they include UFOs, but it's mainly defined as man-made objects. And that it is a cult term that is used today in order to try and popularize or get rid of the stigma of little green men and spacecraft from Mars. And that's why they switched it over. But we could debate that ad nauseum. I want to get into the criticism that has led up to this book and is now facing online, because there was a couple of leaks that happened, Rob, over the last few weeks in regards to what was in there. And, you know, all the typical skeptics and non-believers, disbelievers of everything really were trashing Elizondo, even after his first interview yesterday with CBS Morning on television, where he was asked questions and they were trashing what he was saying in there too. So just your overall thoughts on whether or not the controversy of this and the criticism is warranted from the skeptics.
Definitely not warranted. And I think a lot of those people, I'll just be real. I think a lot of those people are just extreme skeptics. They fall in one or two boats for me. They are likely extreme skeptics who just don't believe this thing is happening and everything that he says is a lie and it just can't be true. I think you have that group. But then in ufology, I think you have a group of people that are expecting him to have all these new juicy admissions, or just I think they're like looking for the body and the craft. Like he's showing pictures of bodies and craft, and if it doesn't hit that bar, then I think they are unsatisfied. You hear a lot of people out there, show me the proof, bring me the proof. They're not really seeing or understanding what the value of what was written is. This is actually very smart by Lue Elizondo. I'm just going to say this. Everything he's done, once you read this book, you will realize that everything he has done since the moment he came on TV on whatever show that was and said that we had bodies in craft in 2017, every move he's made has been calculated and for a purpose. And I think I think this book, once it gets to the wider audience out there, because ufology, yeah, we already know what it is, but his goal is to get it to the masses, to the people who aren't even in this topic at this moment. And I think that is so smart, and he's executing it so well. But I think they're the expectations are unreasonable in some cases for some of these people. They just won't be satisfied. You can't satisfy them at all, ever, or they just want the bodies in the craft. And unfortunately, he's not going to be able to provide that, but it provides a lot. And I think it really definitely moves the needle forward.
Josh, let's get your opinion of that.
Yeah, I actually I tend to agree with everything that Rob said. I will also add one additional flavor, and that is that I think that most people in the UFO community have an opinion on what the UFO phenomena is. And anything that comes out that is against their opinion, their ideas, their thoughts, they're immediately going to push against because it doesn't support their narrative. And so it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. I don't know. I've been on 4 times now, Dave. I can't remember which time we talked about this, but it's you can please half the people all the time, and some of the people half the time, but you can never please all the people all the time. And there are always going to be those people who are unwilling to evaluate or reevaluate new information as it relates to their opinion or their narrative and see how it improves or changes or amplifies or whatever the case may be, their particular narrative or their particular point of view. And so because of that, there are going to be constantly people. It could be Lou this time. It could be Grush in 6 months. It could be some other person, who I'm sure you've had on the show, who their book is not received by the mass community, whatever it's UFO, paranormal, cryptid, Bigfoot, whatever the case may be, because that's, if I may be so blunt, that's the problem with our community, is that everybody has their opinions and they're not willing to budge on what those opinions are.
Well, I mean, it has also come out today that Jay Stratton's book is going to be coming out probably in the next 6 months. And that's going to make things a little bit interesting to see where it happens, because how much will that differ from what Lue Elizondo? Jay Stratton really doesn't have the name recognition and credibility, but obviously held a higher position than Elizondo at the Pentagon at that time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because it's going to be a double shot of information. You get tired of talking about Elizondo's in the book, and then all of a sudden Stratton's comes out.
I mean, I think it's a good play, honestly, because when you read the book, Dave, you'll see that Jay's name is mentioned throughout Lue's book. And so we get to basically hear of the account and the experiences and stuff from Lue's perspective, mentioning Jay. And then hopefully when Jay's book comes out, we get the other side of the conversation. We get to understand what are the things that Jay had, in the very first interview that Jay and this mysterious person has with Lue, when they first approach him to run the project, we hopefully get to see when Jay left that meeting, what did they talk about? What did they think of Lue? Why were they looking at Lue to run the program? I think it will paint a potentially broader picture of this whole ordeal that has unfolded over the last 7 years.
Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Josh on this one. Yeah, for sure. Because, you get to see that other side, the untold story, the part Lue can't speak for. But Lue does say this in the book. He says that Jay Stratton had a hand in briefing President Trump about these UFOs. So I'm sure he got some feedback on that. I'm sure he has more. Jay Stratton has details on how that particular interaction went, and kind of can provide some insight, maybe for the first time, because Grush used to brief the president, but he hasn't really talked about it in detail. And maybe we can get some insight on maybe what the response was, or what happened along that process, so we can get an idea of it if it's like we've been told that the presidents just can't do anything, or is it the presidents won't do anything, and then maybe we can jump down a rabbit hole. I'd be looking forward to pretty much anything that adds to the narrative, and I think Jay Stratton will have something interesting to contribute.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm reading a lot of the comments in our YouTube chat tonight, and there's a few very, very skeptical people in here, and I think that adds some good conversation to the chat room, which is always healthy.
Always, yeah.
A lot of them are saying, "Where's the proof? Where's the proof?" The proof doesn't come from a person. All they can do is tell their story in a book. He can't go out and take top secret or classified information and put it in his book. And I'll be honest with you, and you may not like what I have to say, and I apologize for that. That's a Canadian in me. But what were you expecting? Were you expecting him to all of a sudden say, by the way, here is the diagram of the craft that crashed at Roswell, and these are the bodies, and here's the photographic evidence? You can't say that. To me, I have no problem with skepticism, but you got to pick a better argument than show me the proof.
Well, and
yeah, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, and I don't think I'm giving anything away to say this from the book. I'm going to quote it here, but there's a part where he's talking to Hal Puthoff. If anybody's familiar with Hal, he's a genius level guy. Like, he's written all kinds of papers about warp drive technology and everything else. But he's talking to Hal Puthoff, and Hal is basically briefing Lue on everything that's happened with UAP up until that point. And Hal says, well, it all started in 1947 in New Mexico. And Lue responds with, wait, New Mexico was real? And Hal responds with, yes. And then he goes on to say that they recovered a craft and 4 non-human alien bodies. Non-human bodies. I don't know how you're going to say it, but non-human bodies in that crash. I mean, to me, Hal Puthoff said this to now, it's Lue is reporting this, unless we get a statement from Hal that says I concur with everything that was said in it. But it's very, to hear that coming from a person like Hal Puthoff, for me, solidifies that that's what happened.
What is
now, you're right. He didn't produce a picture or a video or a diagram, but those words right there that's the proof, in my opinion.
What is proof? That's what I want to know. I mean, I keep seeing, people, where's the proof? Provide the proof. What is the proof?
Yeah. I mean, if they're talking about Lue providing proof, as long as there is the government standing in the way of him doing that, is not going to happen. As long as the government is in power, it's just you're just being unreasonable by asking for that in that situation. But my question would be, have you ever looked into the history of things that have happened? Just period. I could give you a few right off the bat that you can go and research tonight. And if you have an open mind, you'll walk away from that saying that's very compelling at the very least. And we could just say Ariel School. You could look at the Westall sighting. You could just look at those 2 right there. And there's more. There's definitely other ones. But those ones right there, we're talking about multiple people who were able to corroborate the sighting. Those kids at Ariel School drew the exact same craft. And you have to, if you are really open-minded and you look at sightings like that, you have to be open to like, wow, that's interesting, that's compelling, let me look deeper, instead of just coming in and saying there's no proof, there's no alien proof. There's enough out there for you to kind of wet your whistle.
I'll give you one more research that very many people know about is Broadhaven, Wales in the 70s. A group of school kids had a mass sighting there. So, I mean, to your point, Rob, there's stuff out there. If you're willing to look, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. If you're willing to look and you come away with it saying, yeah, but then what is the level of evidence that you're willing to accept? Do you need an FBI box truck to pull up in front of your front door and say, you knock on your door and say, come here, and they wheel out a cold cart and they flip it open and there's an alien body there and they let you touch it? Like, is that the evidence that you need? And I think we all have to answer that question for ourselves. To me, words are proof.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I accidentally cut you off. Please continue.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, words from credible people is proof. I don't need to see the alien bodies or the craft because credible people have told me what they know. And to me, that's proof enough.
I understand the frustration of people who are tired of the stories. They're tired of the trust me, bro attitude that many people have. I get that. I'm like that too. Okay. I do want the evidence that shows me. But the problem that we have with a lot of people out there who are skeptical is you could stand them an alien right in front of them. They're not going to buy it. They're not going to believe it. When I say what is proof, I'm asking it very facetiously. Okay, because there is plenty of proof. The majority of proof that is out there is anecdotal story, because the U.S. government and any government around the world is not going to give up the information. They're not going to give up a craft. They are not going to give us a body. They aren't going to put us out to where they are going to tell us where these crash sites are or where the hot spots are in locating, where these craft are coming in. I asked somebody right point blank, And I said, where are they coming from? All I was told was, check Manitoba. Check Manitoba. Elizondo told me that. I had 2 other people tell me that as well. Watch Manitoba. Does that mean there's a portal there where they are coming through? Is there a place in the sky where maybe it's like the movie Men in Black where they have to check in to Earth's atmosphere through Manitoba before going there? I don't know what proof is. Okay. They've always tried to control the narrative. We know the government has tried to control the narrative and have been doing that for well over 70 years. But if we want to move the ball forward, we have to allow time for people to speak. And Rob, as we got about 3.5 minutes to go, prior to Lue Elizondo coming out in 2017, this community was begging for an Elizondo. They were on their knees. Only if we could get one guy to come out, one guy from the program at the Pentagon to come out. He comes out, and whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant. But he comes out, and boom, he gets absolutely hammered by a lot of people out there very publicly, including some psychopaths who have doxed him, made death threats to not only him, but his family, his wife, his children. I mean, this is maniacal at times, the way it's been added. We wanted this. Why are we not accepting of it?
Because I think some people are scared of the truth. And there's a few different groups of people out there. Like I say, it depends on, if it's from the skeptical side, it's not as simple as just being a skeptic. And I've done a show about this before. There are levels to it. There's extreme skeptics who will just never, ever admit that what's going on is going on. They will never do it. And they will always say, show me the proof. I need to see this. And when you show them that, then they move the goalposts and say, hey, well, show me that. That was that, but show me this. So you're going to have those extreme skeptics and you will never win. And it's not even worth having a conversation with those people because their minds are so closed off. The skeptics I like are the ones that will come to the table and consider both sides, because that's how you have a progressive conversation that actually gets us somewhere. You have someone on the believer side and the skeptic side, both have open minds. They can get together and have this conversation that we're trying to have here. But you have the extreme ones that just won't ever get it. They won't ever admit it. And then you even have extreme believers who will just believe anything that everybody says. And I think both sides of that spectrum aren't really good for the conversation. You have to have an open mind going into this. Things are happening, whether you believe it or not. Go outside and look up. That's just all I'll say with that.
Josh, what's your take on that? We got about 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree. Kind of the same thing I said earlier. People have narratives, and anything that pushes against that narrative, sometimes they internalize as a direct attack on them, on their position, on their idea. And so it really, from a very psychological point of view, you really have to think about it as they're not secure in some part of their existence, some part of their life, some part of their idea. They question themselves probably constantly. They don't maybe believe that what they're seeing or what they're experiencing is true. And maybe they don't have the support within their community, their family, their friends, whatever the case may be, to support them, re-encourage them to explore these ideas. And so when something new comes out that pushes against that idea, they lash out. Like a cornered animal would, except in this case, they're cornered in their belief system, in their mind, and so they lash out at that person or thing, and so they make irrational choices and irrational decisions when they do that. They threaten people where they don't really need to do that, and it really boils down to just them not really willing to take that internal view of whatever their belief system is, their idea, their worldview, and really reflect on it if this new information can help them improve or change in some way.
Well, we're going to get into that and more when we return for hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Does Elizondo's time as a spook affect his credibility when it comes to this? Sweet Robbie G, Josh Rutledge are here with us. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. We are clear. Dirty Filth, we're going to turn this bad boy over to you for a couple of minutes, and you get to show off your beautiful November cartoon.
Yes. It's the anniversary of the Nimitz incident. I guess you can't really read it very well. Anyways, the fighter pilot is thinking this is unusual, and the Tic Tac is thinking, okay, cat, settle down. He's thinking, look at this dorky aircraft with its super primitive propulsion system. So yes, that's the one for November. Yeah, you don't get to use dorky very often, so I like to do that. Thanks, Polly Rolterman. So yes, another news. Now I'm tempted to get the audiobook as well because, I mean, audiobooks are good if you get a good narrator. There's a lot of times I've listened to audiobooks and it's terrible. But nonetheless, this will be available on the next calendar, which should be ready to go in probably November, October. I'm hoping October. The Web Witch and I... Ow! Boy! Cats. The Web Witch and I are getting that all sorted out and everything, so... Ow! Unbelievable. These cats are out of control. If you guys don't see me tomorrow, they've probably killed me. Thanks, love. It's probably the copious amounts of Earl Grey tea. I don't know. I do run a lot of, love. I run a lot of role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, and I use a lot of goofy voices, so... On J, I always love the cigars type UFOs. They're incredibly strange. I mean, you see, like everything else, it's like discs and triangles and junk. It's interesting. I don't know how those things would work. I haven't looked into it a lot, but I haven't drawn enough cigar-shaped UFOs. I'll have to start doing that. More notes to the page there. Second here. Cigar UFOs. Excellent. I hope everyone's having a good night. I haven't read the whole book yet, but I've seen some couple snippets of it because I'm terrible and I like spoilers. So I'll probably I'll just ramble away if you're trying to read this stuff here, but I'll probably end up do my own little poor man's review of it. Old man builds going down Crystal Powered Engine Road. You know what? That sounds... How come there's no craft powered by crystals or anything? Are we not at that point yet, I wonder? Oh, and also little Corbel triangles. Uh-oh. I think my internet's cutting out. So if you can't hear me, I'm rambling. If you can, then great. You can listen to me ramble. So I did Corbel triangles because that was also associated with the incident. And then I did my little sea monster, which is kind of a homage to a character from a video game. And so basically all my octopuses, or is it octopi? I don't know. I'll have to ask the missus. She's good with that kind of wordsmithing. But they're all purple. Shh, dirty. Sorry, T-Bone. Did I wake up the dog? Rambling away, yes. Dave will be back pretty quick here, and Rob G's probably... I don't know what Rob G's doing.
I was just gonna say, you got your Corbel pyramids are freaking awesome, man. They're awesome. But they said it's bokeh, so let's be aware. They said it's bokeh.
Yeah, I know, but I just want there to be triangle craft. Come on, like we got everything else. How can you have a flat black triangle, but not like a? Oh, wait, no, sorry, it's not a triangle. It's a pyramid.
Yes.
I apologize. That's the correct shape.
They look like the Star Wars holocrons. You know what I'm talking about? The like the Jedi use to navigate. I don't know. Maybe too geeky for everybody.
No, you're good. I love it.
That's fine. If it was maybe, I'm not much of a Star Wars guy, but if it was Star Trek, I could probably. That's whenever when they talked about that great big huge cube that was over the military base, I was like, that's totally Borg. Anyways,
yeah. Swedish.
Yeah, Swedish. The Swedish have square UFOs. Yeah, that's it.
That's a reference to Star Trek First Contact. Sorry, I'm also a Trekkie.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Great drawing, Dirty Filth.
Whoa. Did Dave say sorry? Do you hear that?
I know. I always say sorry. It's a Canadian
Sorry.
thing.
Sorry for Dave saying sorry.
That's right, Dirty. That's right. All right, guys. Big thank you tonight to Cosmic Joe, JSCO, Mennonite Abe, T-Bone ×2, and Noble Patrick. We got the second hour of the show coming up in 3 seconds. All right, here is hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight, where we are breaking on down our good friend and his book, Lue Elizondo, and his book Imminent, released today. And we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our Spaced Out Radio store is open. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock up to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And what do you have for us tonight, Clam? What do you have for us? It is Matapolum. Matapolum is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers. As the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we have Josh Rutledge. We have Sweet Robbie G. Both have delved deep and finished the latest book by Lue Elizondo, Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. A lot of criticism about this gentleman where people are asking point blank, how can we trust his words if he's a spook? Josh, let's kick off with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see the point of view. All right, I guess I feel like his role, or the way that he kind of describes how he came up in his early life, he's very much a person who does not like injustice. Okay. And so from that regard, he saw that these UAP or UFO cases and all these things were kind of just being ignored. Even though his program was stood up to investigate, he would try to, escalate these things, and they were just kind of ignored, and nobody wanted to hear about it. And so he saw that as an injustice. He also saw it as an injustice to the American people, that they weren't being told, this detail that he thought was, paradigm shift, to understand that we're not alone. We're, humans are, there's a quote in his book, humans are not the apex predator on the planet. And so he saw these injustices, and that's why he took the actions that he took. And so even though as a counterintelligence individual, to me, I trust the words because of this establishment that he makes in the book of who he is as a person, his upbringing, with his dad and Cuba and all of this kind of stuff in the 70s. And so he really establishes a rapport with me as a reader. And so that I trust that the reason he did these things was because of the injustice, not because he was trying to hide secrets or to reveal secrets, but really it's because he saw that there was a need for people to know this stuff, and he was bewildered as to why they weren't being shown.
How about you, Rob? What are your thoughts?
Phrase the question to me again.
Just in regards to the fact that he's a spook. And let's face it, spooks have not been very kind to this community over the years.
Well, here's this is my mindset, and I think I think people get wrapped up too much in a person. They look too deep in a person and trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong. I think history has always been an indicator that I lean on, because we have a rich history within ufology. So I would say, look back at the first time the government mentioned UFOs. Essentially, it was Roswell, right? Where they came out, said they had a crash disk. So they came out and told us that we had this. So I look at that, and then I look at a person coming from the government again here now telling me that we have crash craft and potentially alien bodies. Well, I believe that then, because it's essentially lines up with the historical statement made by the government about the exact same thing. So what is there? Give me reasons to not believe what is being said. Like I said, I can go either way. Depends on the evidence you provide me. But as it stands, the guys coming out now, whether it's Lue Elizondo or Grush or a lot of the others, are pretty much corroborating statements that the government initially made back in 1947. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I think you have to look at that, because otherwise you can question anybody that you don't know and have a reason to be suspicious or speculate or put some sort of label on them. But look at the information that's being given and then line that up with data that you already know is in the bucket, like a Roswell or any other sighting that might align with the statement somebody's making today. And I think that's really the way to go about it.
And if I could follow on to that too, I would say that for me, I have to evaluate. So Lue Elizondo is someone who's very similar to a Richard Doty in as far as the line of work that they were in when they were in the military, in the working for the government, etc. For me, the big difference is that Richard Doty doesn't have senators and other people in the government coming forward and speaking up for them, providing statements to basically show that this person is saying what they intend, what they're saying is true and valid. But Lue Elizondo does. And also, to your point, Rob, the things that Lue has talked about, even in his book, we have other documentation, outside of just what's in his book. So it's not like he's making claims that aren't substantiated elsewhere. He's making other than maybe the Roswell incident, he's making claims that other news media outlets have covered over the last 8 years. And so in that regard, when I evaluate him as an intelligence community individual, the same as Richard Doty, I hold him, or I provide him with a higher credibility rating, let's say, because of all these other supporting artifacts that he brings to the table.
Doty never had anybody at the Pentagon come out and say that they actually knew him publicly. He never had that public support that Lue has had. But we also know that Elizondo has never been a fan of ufology. His famous letter on Medium where he wanted to kill ufology, if we all remember that, and that to many people was taken out of context. To others, they took it very seriously, Rob, on what he meant. Do you really think that he has the meaning of what's best for ufology? Because we've seen a great shift in ufology over the last few years, especially.
And I think I've said this maybe last year on this show. Let me just cleared that statement up, because a lot of people keep going back to Lue saying he wanted to blow up ufology. And I'll tell you what it is. Just like I said not too long ago, there's a portion of our community which unfortunately are embellishers, for one, exaggerate stories. Some essentially just come out and lie. They just don't tell the truth about some experiences that they've had, right? And kind of make it over the top. Those people end up getting the shine for whatever reason, and they reflect, I think, badly on the rest of the community. Not only that, but at the time he made the statement, there was a lot of infighting going on within ufology at the time as well, and it was just a toxic place to be. I mean, let's be truthful. Everybody remembers, and there is a sentiment, a part of me that would definitely agree with Lue with the statement like that. I think we kind of have to. What did somebody just said? Separate the wheat from the chaff, or something like that. Kind of. We need to do that within our own community. There are people who probably shouldn't. We have to get rid of the subset of people who don't have disclosure as their goal within ufology, and kind of the rest of us. And I made a statement like, maybe we come up with the new name instead of ufology, call it I don't know, humanology or some new term, right? And then we kind of move over there and leave the rest of the people over here, because I think that's really what he meant by blow it up. It's like there's a subset that doesn't really represent getting to the truth or finding the answers. And I'm trying to say that as best as I can without offending anybody, but there definitely is if we are being truthful with ourselves, then we know there's a subset of this community that probably should not be in the conversation.
Well, every community is going to have its fans and its critics, Elizondo, as well. As we continue on with this conversation about the book Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Earlier today, he was interviewed by News Nation's Ross Coulthart, where he said, "We are not alone in the universe. And the United States government has been dealing with this subject for decades." Did that catch any of you off guard that he would go into that territory?
Not me. Well, only because he's very blatantly said it in his book. So, I mean, that obviously, to me, it's obvious that is if he leaves this stage with one message getting out, it's that humans are not alone. And I feel like if the vast majority of the people on the planet were to walk away with receiving that message from him as humans are not alone, he would feel like he's accomplished his goal.
Yeah, and I think his main mission is, we know here in ufology that we're not alone. There's no, that we definitely know. I think what he's doing, and when we talked about his rollout for the book, and then him focusing on these major networks or outlets as his initial push, I think his main goal is to get out to the other people who don't really realize or understand that we are not alone. So making a statement like that to us is like, yeah, we know we're not alone, but it's really not for us. Mm-hmm. It's to get to the masses, the rest of the people, because we don't move this thing forward unless those other people who are not within or not versed on this subject come aboard, or at least become aware of a statement like that. You know what I mean? And you'll see that once you go through his book and you really read it, and then you look back on when you first saw Lue Elizondo, all the interviews you watched, and then you read the book, you will understand what that mission is for him. And like I said before, I'm behind him 100%. I think he's on the right path, and I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy. I mean, there are a lot of people like to point out personal things, personal tips. I don't care about all that. I care about what are you doing for the movement. And that's kind of what I grade him on, right?
I look at that statement that he made in regards to the interview with Ross Coulthart as a very powerful moment for ufology. If it was any other subject outside of UFOs, I think that it would be blown up all over the world what he stated today. I really do believe that. But because it is UFOs, it doesn't get the play or the press that it deserves. I think we should be paying attention. But again, I can tell you right now, even though as a journalist, I try and call this subject and everything that I see down the middle, the experiencer side of me is very biased towards the fact that this phenomenon is real. It is happening. It is happening to everyday people like you and me. And that's where I kind of sit back and I'm thinking, wow, are we as a society that blind and that inept to understand something powerful was just said publicly and we're going to ignore it? Much like we ignored the Robert Bigelow interview on 60 Minutes where he said, you don't need to go out into space. They're already here. Josh, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that and say that yeah, you're right. I mean, I think, the 60 Minutes episode that Lue did with, Mellon and everybody else that was on that. I mean, that was as mainstream as you can get. All right. With bringing this topic to the mainstream. I think it's the thing that I always hear kind of from people who are, let's say, in the mass of humanity who are on the fence on the topic of UFOs, or who are even just, like I can't even think about this right now. It's the question always comes up of, okay, great, we're not alone. What now? And so it's not just a matter of making the statement, we're not alone. It's a matter of of having the necessary conversations at the appropriate levels for everybody to start saying we're not alone. And here's how that translates to your life. Here's how that translates to how much we fight over and squabble over little things. And here's how that translates into how we treat our fellow humans and so on and so forth. But until we start having those bigger macro conversations as like affecting humanity as a whole, then the statement of we're not alone made on Ross Coulthart or even on CBS Morning is not going to have the impact that I think Lue and others hope that it will have.
I agree. I think it's truthfully, I think once again, looking at Lue, I think everything's strategic, and I think this will have its moment. Once you put it down, just like the archives, right? We got archives for free. You can jump back in the archives and see something that was said years ago, and it resonates. We get comments today on videos that are 2 or 3 years old. So the message eventually gets where it needs to go. And I think it's the same thing here. Yeah, he said on the big stage, who watches live TV anymore? Not me. You'll catch it on YouTube on a video as you're popping through. It needs to be recommended to you. First of all, it needs to hit the algorithm, right? All that stuff is in play when we talk about a lot of people that are out there watching videos or taking in information. So I think as long as it was said on that big stage, that whenever someone gets to it, they'll be like, wow, okay, he was on CBS in the morning, and they're actually engaging in a good way with him and really into what it is that he's saying. And it just gives more credibility. So it doesn't necessarily, I think, need to hit immediately. As long as he's made the statement, it's there. And I think people will get to it eventually because they'll be searching for the information at some point here. Just like we know there's going to be a flood of new people coming in, digging through everyone's archives, trying to get up to speed on what's going on once it hits them or once they get triggered to do so. And that Lue interview will be right there to be consumed. And so I just look at it as laying down, laying a path for people, breadcrumbs, which he's always done, for people to go back and pick up later. So I'm all with it. And I think, like I said, I think once you read the book, Dave, or once you get through the book, I think you'll kind of feel Like it's a process. I'm gonna say it's a process. I'm different now than I was before I read the book. Like I have more of an understanding on where he's going. I knew that he would be doing something, but after reading the book, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm on board. Let's go.
Yeah, I think also to kind of add to what you had to say, Rob, is, you know, if we, the community, whatever, really want to get these messages out there to the non-UFO community, you know, somebody needs to splice together an ad and run it on YouTube, targeting people who like, I don't know, woodworking, right? But like, don't run an ad targeting UFO people, because like you said, UFO people already know. They already know the answer. If it's really meant to get to the masses, that's how you have to do it. You know, you have to build this nice fancy YouTube ad and run it to people who would never even search for the term ufology or uapology or whatever the new term is. And that's how you got to get it out there. And like you said, then the people, either A, they'll have their own experience and they'll want to find answers, or B, they'll just want to know more about what's going on. I have said for the last 4 years, since I had my experience in my backyard in Kentucky, and I've started on this journey looking forward, that this is a grassroots movement. It's individuals. It's people having experiences and sharing their experiences with other people who then have their experiences, and so on and so forth. And the community grows, and that's how the message grows in turn, is that the more people hear about it, have their own experiences, are willing to question the reality of the nature of the reality, the more people are going to open themselves up to the phenomena. And once they open themselves up to the phenomena is going to make sure that they get the information and the messages that they need in order to continue in their understanding of their own reality.
Absolute truth, Josh. Could have said it better. Absolute truth. And let me say this real quick, Dave. I just want to say this because it was something I wrote down, just something Lue said that kind of may give you the understanding of what I'm trying to say. So this is kind of paraphrasing, but Lue said that a true patriot protects the citizens from their government, or from the government. And that's what I've been saying the whole time. Like, when you have people within the government who have an option to either step out and risk it, like Lue did, on behalf of the people, on behalf of humanity, not just America, but globally. Or you have the option of being scared and saying, oh, I'm just going to abide by what the government wants me to do. But Lue said, essentially, a true patriot protects the citizens from the government. And that right there says it all. And that's what I got from, even without that statement, that's what I got from the experience of going through that book and then kind of looking at everything retrospectively. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, with 1 minute to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour, we're talking about Lue Elizondo's new book, Imminent, coming out with Sweet Rob G and Josh Rutledge tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Do either of you feel that Elizondo didn't go deep enough after reading the book, that he could have added more? Now, we know the book was highly redacted. In fact, I heard at minimum 5 times he had to go back to the DOD and other agencies that would redact statements and everything that he was saying. Do you think that he got enough out? Or do you think that he was able to get enough in there just to get the ball rolling? Because up until this point, ufology or uapology, whatever you want to call it, has been dealing with breadcrumbs over the years. I think we can all agree on that. But did this give us an actual slice of the pie? That's what we're going to get to when we get back from the break here on Spaced Out Radio as we continue the UFO talk with Rob G and Josh Rutledge.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear.
Awesome stuff. Awesome.
Yeah, Josh, if you want to stick around, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I
we're
can
gonna-
stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We'll take you to the top of the hour. Jeremy Jones, how you doing? Jeremy says, I'm halfway through the book. How the hell did you get a copy already? And it's good, but sadly, it's mostly like the same stuff. I gotta buy this damn thing right now. Audiobook. I'm going to bed listening to this.
You're gonna learn it through osmosis.
Yeah. It's yeah, I guess we're gonna answer that when we come back. But I'm like I said, it's free advertise. And here's the thing, I guess, with free advertisement. If something is that good, then you're compelled to tell people about it. So it's not really selling. It's just like I think everybody should have the book. You know, whether you bought it or somebody gave it to you, I think you should own the book. There's a really good message in there, I think. And I talked to Bryce Zabel, through email. He's working on a book too. And I think it's people like that. And then we got James Fox documentary coming out. And I know James Fox, his heart is always in the right place in his approach to this. So I think it's going to get some momentum is going to be going on here within ufology. I'm just happy to see it. I'm glad Lue got it kicked off and ready to see he's gonna pass the baton to, and let's keep it going.
Well, and there's a part like in the last little bit of the credits of the book where Lue talks about being in a documentary that's coming out by somebody named Dan Farah.
Farah. By the way, we broke that story in February. Courtney Marcus broke that story. I am downloading the book right now. Just letting you know. I'm downloading the audiobook right now.
Great. So then you'll know what we're talking about by tomorrow.
I can tell you right now, I will, when I'm editing the show tonight, I will be listening to it. Unfortunately, I can't do that on YouTube, but I will be doing it.
Yeah. I love to see your perspective afterwards.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm reserving my judgment until I know, or until I get through this.
I'm gonna officially ask Lue Elizondo, come on the show, buddy. I would love to talk to you. Dave would love it. We would all sit in here and love to talk.
I'm already working on that. I got to get through his PR firm right now.
Yeah,
they're being a bunch of stinkfish. Simon, how are you?
Yeah, hey Simon. Appreciate you coming on in. And this is what we needed this year, man, because we haven't had any movement or motion. But I knew once Lue's book came out, it was going to have motion. And I just can't wait for the other stuff to have. We still have 4 months left to get some real stuff going on. UFO Cholo, would you ask real tough questions? Yeah, of course I would. I mean, like, give me an example of one you would ask, UFO Cholo. What would you ask Lue Elizondo if you had him right here, right now, to give me an idea of what you're talking about?
What's a tough question?
I'm wondering what UFO Cholo considers a tough question. That way I can gauge what it is, because I may not have that criticism, or maybe I do.
Well, the problem is the public doesn't understand what a tough question is. They think pointing out an aha gotcha moment is a tough question, whereas you can ask a tough question without sounding like an asshole.
Yeah.
So what's a tough question? Jeremy McGowan has nothing to do with the book. See, that's the problem. That goes off topic. That's a different line of topic. And I know the story about Jeremy McGowan. I'm very familiar with it. Okay, but that's a topic. It's like when you interview Rick Doty and everybody's bitching at you that you don't ask him about the Paul Benowitz case, which he's asked about 14 million times, right? Why keep going down that road?
Which I did interview Rick Doty.
UFO Cholo, I know everything that was happened in Canada. I was there on the background of that. So that story's already come out. So don't believe the critics on other shows that say they know what happened when they weren't there.
Let me ask the Cowboys.
Hold on, Rob.
Okay.
Hold on. Sorry, buddy. I apologize.
Yeah, coming back. We're good.
All right, here is the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're getting deep into the book of Imminent by Lue Elizondo with our panel tonight, Josh Rutledge and Sweet Robbie G. But first, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hope you're enjoying tonight's show. Also want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have until the top of the hour, Josh Rutledge, Sweet Robbie G, talking about Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, the brand new book that has come out by Lue Elizondo. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate you.
Fantastic conversation so far.
Yep, loving it.
All right, let's hammer it home here. Let's finish up strong here. When we continue to go down this path with Lue Elizondo, his book, and everything that goes on, the way he's trying to portray this subject. Josh, I know you're not a fan of the threat narrative that he continues to portray. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he's, calling it as a threat. We talked about it a little bit last night. The whole idea is that to get funding from the government, there has to be a reason to give that funding. Well, investigating a threat is a very common reason to give that funding. But I think it's a little bit, it's also a little bit of a Schrodinger's cat situation, right? I mean, until we have the opportunity to sit down and talk with any non-human species that may be flying around in our atmosphere and ask them what their intentions are, it could be positive, it could be negative, it could be indifferent. And so I understand why he goes with the threat narrative, but I also wish that he would at least phrase it as, like I just did, we don't know their intent. I think from a security perspective, assume negative intent has always kind of been the mantra. But I think until we know the intent, we have to review and evaluate our position against positive intent, negative intent, and just neutral intent, and make sure that we're evaluating all of the information and data that we're receiving against any one of those three scenarios. If we always assume negative intent, we may approach a situation that doesn't need to be approached that specific way. So my only concern, like I said, is that he doesn't spin it as we don't know their intent. I don't want to assume negative intent, blah, blah, blah. In the military and the government, sure, they have to do that because security and all that kind of stuff. But Lue's not in that realm or that field anymore. And so I think, he could take a step back and think about it more holistically.
What's your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Josh here. I mean, I always say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Now, here's what I will say. I will say this. I will say that Lue is historically known, as far as we've known him, been a person that drops breadcrumbs, wants you to read between the lines. So I know he made a statement saying that specifically, and I think it was the basketball shape size orbs when he said this, but he said that he did not get the feeling of benevolence. And he then went on to say that it could be malevolent or it could be neutral. And I think that might be one of those read between the line moments. And I say that because we had David Grush come out and pretty much just say that they're killing people. People are dying behind, X, Y, and Z at the hands of government and at the hands of extraterrestrials. So now is this a moment where Lue did not want to say that, but he's kind of letting you know, hey, I haven't seen anything good about it at this point, so it leaves the other two categories open. So I think that might be a thing. And then to kind of add to that is that you have, if we believe what experiencers are saying, people are being taken from their homes in the middle of the night, and then some really don't like it. Some really consider what is being done to them as intrusive and would be considered negative. And if that's the case, then that's an example of malevolent intent. Like, why are you taking people? So I think it's just good to be prepared for everything, because there's actually a portion of the community that looks at this as totally benevolent. Like, there is no malevolent option. It is only love and light. They are here to help, and that is it. And I think that's a mistake. I think, you should at least, you don't have to think that they're here for malevolent purposes, but just be prepared, because you got a family, you got these things that you want to protect, and you would hate to find out in the moment of confirmation when they land or whatever it is they're going to do. You would hate to find out in that moment that, oh my God, they are malevolent, and it's going to be too late. You don't have a plan. You don't have anything. So I think it's to be prepared would be a good option.
Yeah,
at least think about it.
Sorry, I mean, cut you off, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, something else that comes up a lot too is, at least that I try to think about is, we anthropomorphize everything that we encounter, right? We come at it from a humanistic perspective, but I don't know that we could take our same ethics and morals and assume that an ET or a UT or a CT or whatever the T's are would have that same feeling and thought. And so, because we look at abduction experiences, some of us, and see them as a negative, we assume that they're intentionally hurting us. But again, they may not realize that they're doing that. So kind of that same mentality of be prepared, be prepared for the idea that ethics and morals can develop, agnostic of civilization. And so in their civilization, their ethics and morals may be completely different from ours. And then the other piece that I would say is, Lue talks about at one point in his book about, the UAP hurting people, specifically he talks about this big long case in Brazil in the 70s. And he says, if you step behind a jumbo jet on the tarmac when it's taken, or on runway when it's taken off, you're going to get hurt, but it's not intentionally designed to hurt you. And so you could look at UAPs as the same way. People who get too close to them get hurt, but are they designed to hurt? That's the distinction there.
Yeah, like, is it the intent to really hurt them? Now, right. I agree with you on that. And that's why it's good that we're able to talk about this, right? Because, we don't really know. We kind of just talking this thing through. Now, there's, you can even look at the fact that the only reason why we know that people are getting abducted is because we have people that have been abducted and then returned home. There is a subset of people that believe that some people aren't being returned as well. And then, you have to look at that. And then just kind of to get on, because I had this before we get done here. I wanted to bring this up. I have a person that's in the chat tonight that gave me some insight. Jason Sands, I guess, was on Twitter Space, I think today or maybe yesterday, and made a statement saying that on X that extraterrestrials are actually coming here and coming to get their people back, coming to get their craft and their and the bodies back. And I just bring that up because if that, not to say that what he's saying is the truth, because I'm not going to say that, but you just have to wonder, it's just another thing to speculate on why they're here. And it makes sense. I've always said that we keep the bodies of their fallen, and wouldn't that at some point probably change the way that they look at humanity and maybe turn this from, hey, we're here to help, to wait a minute, you guys are, we don't want to help anymore, and kind of change the way that they feel about humanity, their perception. And that kind of ties into the conversation we're having now, because it could be one reason why they could change the way they feel about us and begin to be malevolent. So just want to add that.
And kind of along with that statement, sorry, Dave, I'm going to block you out.
Please jump in.
So I'm also about halfway through John Mack's book about abduction, just to kind of throw another book in the mix. And there's a section there where the person talks about this other alien life that they were living prior to being human. And they say that in that alien life, other aliens or other extraterrestrials, get hurt or injured while they're on Earth, and they were able to recover the bodies and heal them and bring them back to life. And so it kind of like, taking that situation in that abduction book and applying it to what you just said does make sense. We look at death as being final, right? That like there is no returning from death, at least not in the physical, flesh and blood. But maybe that's not the case for them. And so by us keeping their bodies, prevents them from bringing their fallen, friends and family back to life.
Could very well be.
Makes sense.
Let's get to some audience questions here. Kick it off with Polly, who is asking, was there a wow moment for either of you guys reading the book? Rob, let's start with you.
A wow moment. I would I'll give you a couple of ones that kind of, I guess, were wow for me. Just the fact that he named Lue named the presidents that he believes have been briefed on UFOs, and it goes all the way back to Truman. A lot of people we thought that had been potentially briefed or had some involvement or knowledge. He said Truman, Eisenhower, JFK, LBJ, Carter, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and then Trump. And then another thing that I jotted down is that in the conversation he was having with someone who had the clearance, who he was able to talk to about the subject, kind of went against him as far as advising him maybe he shouldn't come out and say the things he was going to say. Obama too. I'm not sure. He didn't say Obama though in the book. So a person who had knowledge of things that were going on said to him, he said, a person highly placed in the U.S. government, a person who knew the truth the government has withheld all these years, asked him, do you realize that talking about this issue so openly, you are accelerating the chances that we will be invaded? I don't know why the person feels that way, but I think that was one of the moments. It just gave insight on to some of the showing that other people within the government understand that this is real, and they're kind of giving their counterpoint on why it's maybe not be a good idea to come out and talk. So that was just insightful, if anything. I don't know about wow. How about you, Josh?
So two big things stand out for me. Number one, he was apparently trained as a remote viewer and did remote viewing for a period of time. he talks about in the book how he got to the point where he no longer has to think about going into remote viewing mode. He can just turn it on and just remote view. And so I thought that was really interesting. And then number two, he spends a great deal of time in the later chapters of the book, or towards the middle, I guess, talking about Hal Puthoff and a lot of the papers that Hal published. And if you read between the lines, some of the things that he says about Hal and the papers that he published, to me anyway, kind of point towards Hal may have figured out, 0-point energy. Hal may have figured out how UFO fly. Like, he talks about how discovering why UFO exhibit the 5 observables. What is the condition that exists that it would allow them to, to exhibit the 5? So it's, to me, that part of the book where he really kind of pays homage to Al as just this really smart guy, and that he stumbled across a lot of great information. That really stood out to me. It's actually made me want to now go find a lot of Hal's papers and read through them. Not that I would probably be able to understand a lot of it, but still be able to read through them and see, if anything makes sense or jogs my mind into coming up with some new idea or something. You never know.
Exactly.
All right, let's get to another question here. Let's go over to Simon. Do you think it is all planned? Remember John Ramirez saying something about big news in 2024, another ex-CIA. Thanks.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, I do. I came on the show last night, Dave. We talked a little bit about, the book coming out. And I said that I think this is a part of a bigger plan. I mean, I think this is a part of a bigger plan that probably started shortly after that Brookings report that I mentioned that was done back in the 60s, where they said that we weren't ready to know. That probably kicked off some plan of, let's introduce more TV, more movies, more, that introduce all these different concepts and blah, blah, blah. And then get to a certain point where, now we have to start putting out real information. We've desensitized them to the idea of little green men. Now let's start putting out real information that highlights the actual possibility of it being true.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely think it's part of a plan, just as Josh just said, as far as it in not really comparable to John Ramirez, though, because, I think a lot of that stuff is speculate. I don't really see that as being too factual as far as big news coming to 2024 or 2027. The ETs are going to land in 20. I don't go with that. I do think it's a plan, though, as far as for what we can do within our control to actually get the word out there, which is thinking this plan through, think strategically, dropping information and it in the right outlets and at the right time, and then have in line with other things that may come out. So adding to the momentum, just like I think David Grush coming out at that time was strategic and was planned, and I think this is something that would add to that plan. And I think there are other things that we haven't seen yet that are also part of that plan. And I think the big goal is to break through that barrier of being able to reach those other people. And I think that's the main focus. And that I think that is the plan. I don't know when that happens, if it happens this year, if it's accomplished, but I know there's, like I said, James Fox still is to come. We have a few other authors putting books out, and who knows is going to pop up out of nowhere, whistleblowing her. So I think things are being definitely laid out in a way, premeditated.
I'm going to jump in on this question too. I think the government has had a plan all along, and that is to keep this subject under the rug. And that's why we saw last year the United States Navy go public and saying, we're not talking UFOs anymore. All right. They shut down the conversation. The Air Force never joined the conversation. The NSA never joined the conversation. The NRO never joined the conversation. The United States Army didn't join the conversation. Neither did the Marines. And so the Navy decided to shut themselves up as well. And I think that when we look at the phenomena as it's happening, I think there is a battle plan to try and deter what is ours and what is theirs. Sources have told me over the years that only about 10% of what we see in the sky is not human or human technology. You know, you look at that video from around your area, Rob, that just came out around Palmdale of that UFO. And then to me, that looked like drones or some sort of craft that they were testing.
Let me add to that, actually, Dave. Somebody I was watching a show and they pointed out a really great point that I just didn't realize in the moment of watching it. But that video wasn't even shot in Palmdale or Lancaster. It wasn't shot anywhere near there. For one, they showed the sailboats in the frame and talked about the beach. Palmdale and Lancaster's in the middle of the desert. Is by Mojave. So there's no way it was that location, period. So if to start off, if the location is wrong, likely the rest of that data is wrong too. So I just wanted to add that because I didn't know if you realize it or not. Definitely wasn't Palmdale. The nearest beach is probably a couple 100 miles from there. So let's.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you clearing that up. But I mean, the whole point that I'm trying to say is we get a lot of that going on right now, where we don't know what they're showing us. How advanced are they? What are they advanced about? And this is what's scary of it all, is like, even, they've never come out and confirmed the Tic Tacs. The Tic Tac that we believe is some sort of UFO. Okay. There's question about that. And I've had people say, I believe that they are ours. People who would be in the know. Do I believe it? I don't know. I want to believe what the statistics and the stats showed that Kevin Day put out. I mean, when you see an aircraft or whatever it is drop from 80,000 feet down to 10 feet in 0.78 of a second and dead stop above the ocean, that tells me that maybe that's not something from here. But do we really know? Considering places like Lockheed Skunk Works, if we go back just 30 years, we're saying that they were 50 years ahead of what we are seeing today. In that 30 years, how much further ahead are we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's a stretch because we still, everywhere else, we are operating primarily on Newtonian physics. What we saw exhibited in the Nimitz and the Go Fast and the Gimbal pushes aside Newtonian physics as we understand it. Do I think that in 30 years we could have a complete new understanding of Newtonian physics that allows us to develop craft? Which, by the way, the Lue's book talks about that Tic Tac was 48 feet long. Like in all the illustrations, it's depicted as being kind of the same size as the airplane, the F-18. It was 48 feet long, which is like a school bus. So I mean, it was massive in size. And it dropped from, and they watched him over several days before the Nimitz encounter that we hear about with Fravor in the video. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems, I want to believe in the secret space program. I want to believe that we have the ability to reverse engineer, that we have the intelligence to reverse engineer UFO craft and create our own stuff. But I feel like as warring as we are, if we had the technology, we would put it to use in the next conflict.
And here's what I'll say with that. They mentioned Tic Tacs back in the 50s and 60s, so it's definitely not our tech. It's definitely not our tech. And then at the end of the day, if you think about where we are, currently, the spy game, we know what adversaries have. They know what we have. There's no secret there. So it's not adversarial tech either.
Thank you, Josh Rutledge. Thank you, Sweet Robbie G, for a great night of breaking down Imminent from Lue Elizondo. Swamp Dweller kicks off hour 3 next. Then Jackie's here with the Cryptid Report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.